Good morning and welcome to Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Well, I've heard so much about and wanted to know more about and better understand a booming industry better, and that's called eSports. It's at the college level, the professional level, and even now, high school. So who better to have in the studio today to go through the numbers? And it's a multi-billion-dollar global industry, which I don't think a lot of people know, and about eSports. So here to help me better understand the landscape are my guests, Tim Lowe. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Oh, you bet. I've learned a lot just in preparing for this show. You're the founder and executive director of the Massachusetts Digital Games Institute, better known as Mass Digi. And you're located on the Becker College campus in Worcester. And we also have in studio today Cam Donahue, who's a varsity player on the Smite team, which is an eSports, and we'll get into that. Good morning, Cam.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here. You're from Worcester. You're a junior at Becker?
Yes.
Okay. And you're joined by Haley Jarris, a club officer. We'll go over the club. You're from Dudley, and you're involved in esports as well.
Yes, I am.
Thank you for being here today. I know it's a busy time at school for you all. So, Tim, Mass Digi was founded back in 2011. Can you explain a little bit? I know it's housed technically at Becker. What is Mass Digi?
So Mass Digi is the statewide center for entrepreneurship, academic cooperation, and economic development over the games ecosystem. What that means is we work with tons of students and faculty at multiple institutions around the state. We work with the startup community and the established studios in the region, and we also do advocacy with different levels of government around games. And over the course of our work over the last 7 or 8 years, there's been this sort of steady drumbeat around esports. We've seen it start, get bigger and bigger, and at this point, it's everywhere, right? At least in our world, it's everywhere. And as a result of those conversations, we've talked to the folks at Becker and helped them work out their strategy on how the college should approach esports and incorporating it into what it does. And in that role, I've sort of become the GM of the Becker Varsity Esports program as well. So I have a couple of hats, but it's all about video games, and it's really exciting.
Now, the fact that it's all about video games brings a good point, because I think people want to understand. People are just starting to, even though it's been around at Becker and other schools and for quite a while, people are just starting to understand that it's a legitimate professional, can be a professional sport. There's money to be made, in having a career in esports, and there's also a difference between the gaming of your kids at in the basement playing video games and esports as a varsity sport. So how has it gone from this recreational video gaming to a professional and now a big college sport?
Well, the sort of history of esports is sort of interesting. It's been around actually a lot longer than people think. It just has always stayed sort of as part of what I guess you'd call the sort of subculture, gaming subculture that, but it's grown dramatically over the years, LAN parties, things like that. And now with online gaming and the fact that sort of people can connect with each other on mobile devices, on PCs, on consoles easily, it's really exploded, not only here in the States, but globally. Like, more people play more games on more devices than ever before. Broadly speaking, it's well north of $100 billion globally.
Wow, revenue.
Yeah, revenue, and esports represent a rapidly growing part of that total figure. So it's big business. In this country, it's about twice the size of Hollywood box office. It's 3 or 4 times the size of the music industry. So games are, some people argue, the largest form of entertainment on the planet these days.
Now, there's a difference between, and that's where I'm gonna ask Cam and Haley. Cam, on the college level, where you talk about it being a varsity sport, these leagues are based on individual games, correct? So when you see a tournament, there could be a big tournament in a convention center that people, I couldn't understand. I saw this on national television, and I was watching somebody watch a screen. So explain to me what Smite is and what a varsity team what it does, what you play, how that looks like versus an athletic varsity sport that you're on. You're on the Smite team.
Okay, so the Smite team, it's varsity because we're competing in a collegiate league with like a 50,000 scholarship, like prize on the line.
57 scholarship?
Well, it's like $50,000
Oh, $50,000.
split 5 ways. So if we were to win the tournament, it would be a $10,000 scholarship. And so the final step would be at DreamHack in Atlanta, which is like a big convention that...
DreamHack?
Yeah, that the company Hi-Res is like hosting. And so it'd be like this giant convention hall where there'd just be like the main like eSports league for Smite would be there, as well as the collegiate leagues playing.
Okay, so you're in a collegiate league. What is Smite? Explain.
It's MOBA, which is this like multiplayer online battle arena. It's essentially 2 teams that are just playing in like 3 separate lanes, and they're just trying to get to like the other objective and beat their objective down and win the game.
So when I see these, so is the Becker College team, when you call it a team, who are you competing against?
We're competing against other colleges. We recently played like Northeastern University and Shawnee State.
Yeah. And where did that take place?
So those are online, like we host them ourselves. But the finals, we'd be like driven out in person to compete.
Wow. Now you told me earlier before we went on the air that there's actually scouts out looking to hire team players like yourself?
And coincidentally, our coach is like the number 2 coach in the world. So he's also like actually scouting for like, so there's like 2 different levels of play. There's like minor leagues, which is like, I think like 18 teams. And then the majors, which are like 8 in Europe and 8 in the US. And they're actually...
It's kind of like a national team.
So it's like national recognized where there's like different, so it's not just like US based, it's world based essentially.
Wow. Okay, so this is in the Smite game. Now, there's other tournaments, right? I don't know who wants to speak to this, but there's other tournaments by game. Like there's League of Legends, that's one tournament. So would there be a separate team for that then?
Yes.
So eventually we might see multiple teams, unlike a sport. You have a JV and a varsity, but we might see varsity sports, but they're all for different games?
Yes, I expect that it will in many ways mirror sports. Like the athletics department at a college will have, I don't know, 10, 20, sometimes more games that it supports, sports that, you know, soccer, softball, baseball, etc. And that will probably happen in esports too, where you'll support League of Legends and Overwatch and Smite, or, you know, there are many, Rocket League, there are many titles, games that are competitive and make sense for esports. Some don't, but many do, and many developers are now making that spectator component core to their game development process, because there is such a enormous opportunity in esports to expand your sort of revenue streams on the business side.
Right, and that makes perfect sense, because we're going to get to that, how many jobs there are in this industry and what kind of jobs they are. Haley, from my research that I've done, it seems like there's more men involved than women in this sport. Do you find that to be the case? And if so, what interested you? So if we have women out there listening thinking, I have a daughter, or they're listening themselves and they want to get interested, they play for fun, but maybe they want to join a team or look at playing it more seriously. Do you find that there's more men involved?
Yeah, definitely. So being at Becker and the gaming majors, it's like pretty much all men. So sometimes it does kind of, it's kind of an obstacle, I guess, because you kind of feel down on yourself, like, oh, I don't know if I'm good enough. But for me personally, I grew up, like, my father played a lot of video games. He would kind of give the controller to me to, like, make me stop crying or something. So I just kind of continued to play them, and then I realized, like, hey, I really like doing art, and I could make art for video games, so that's why I thought it'd be a really good career path for me. And my advice to other girls or, like, young women who are interested in being in the field, I would just say, like, go for it. Like, my family was really kind of unsupportive, like, at first. They were
Unsupportive?
like, oh, yeah. They were like, oh, you can't really, like, you know, probably make a living in doing something like this. But, you know, here I am. And I think I'm doing like a pretty good job so far. And it doesn't really matter like the other, like the gender gap or anything, because it's always good to be like, hey, yeah, there's like 100 people here. I'm like the one woman and there's like 99 men, but like it's okay. Like I'm still doing like a good job. So.
Well, that's good. I mean, you have to have confidence. So what are you majoring in to get involved in esports? What kind of majors at the college? And you both can answer this question.
So I'm in a game art major. So it's the interactive media design, but I'm in like the game art concentration of it. So I do like most of the art or like UI for different games and stuff.
And UI means user interface.
Yeah.
I knew one. I'm not that dumb. No, but so interactive media is the degree. Mm-hmm. And then you have a concentration in, there's 5 you had mentioned, right?
Yeah, there's 4. So there's
4,
game
okay.
art, game design, game programming, and game production or business.
Okay, Kim, what is your major?
I'm majoring in game programming.
So interactive media.
Yeah, interactive media design with concentration in game programming, which coincidentally only has 1 woman like in the entire program for like my junior class.
And how many people are in the program overall? So that's 1
Last
out
time
of...
I checked, it was like 90-something.
In your class. I think overall through all the majors at Becker related to games, there are about 600 students.
And how many are women, roughly?
I wouldn't know, but I'd say it's probably less than 15% for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're a trailblazer, Haley. Are there professional women? Because I know you hear about the men, and there's professional gamers that I had to be schooled on by family members and by my producer, Kyle, who is here in the room with us, about these sponsorships. I mean, this is big money, just like in the NFL or anything else. Instead of Nike, well, you could have Nike, but I saw that one of the top players of the Fortnite game is sponsored by Doritos, and I mean he's making millions and millions and millions of dollars because he's getting millions and millions and millions of watchers. So where do you see this going for you? Do you want to stay in the creative design part of it, or do you want to play?
So for me personally, I'm pretty open-ended at this point because so I am interested in like the whole art and like creative aspect of games and everything. But being on the board for esports, I've had the opportunity to like manage teams and do a lot of events. Like I really like event planning. So I'd really love to do something like that also like for a career. So if someone was like, hey, you wanna like manage this tournament or like this event for esports, I'd be like, heck yeah, I think it'd be like really awesome. So like I'm trying to keep like my options open and just kind of figure out like what I like so far. But I do know I want to be like somewhere in like the gaming field. Like
Not necessarily a gamer.
Yeah,
You
not
just want to be from the business.
like realistically, it's really hard to make it as like a competitive gamer, just because there's like so many people that play it, and there's only like a small percentage that actually is like really good enough to be professional. So I wouldn't say like I'm planning on being a player, but I just want to be like in the industry itself.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Kim, how would you answer that? Do you see yourself in a career of actually trying to go for the gold, I guess we would say?
Yeah, I'm also open-ended. I initially just went straight for like the scholarship competition because
The scholarship competition.
Yeah, because that'd be really helpful. But overall, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of stressful, especially with like the school like workload on top of it. But I feel it's something I could try to pursue as I keep moving on in school, as I move in my major with less and less work, because I'm kind of taking like 6 classes at the moment. Mm-hmm. Trying to graduate early.
So when you talk about scholarships, that brings something that's been getting some news lately, but they've been talking about, there's been some media coverage of esports management at Becker and scholarships around that. But there's also other scholarships around esports. Tim, can you
Sure.
address that?
So this past summer, Becker officially announced its varsity esports program, and in that announcement, the college let everyone know that there are some scholarships available for players. So we actually have a handful of folks with small scholarships at the school this semester to play League of Legends. Then later in the summer, Becker announced the esports management degree, which is the first of its kind in the nation.
And that's an undergraduate degree?
It's an undergraduate degree. It's a BS, Business Administration, esports management degree. And we just announced just last week that that program has also got some scholarships attached to it. So that's an academic program. The other one's sort of like an athletic activity. So if you think of them that way.
But they're not an athletic scholarship.
Well,
I mean, how do you
only
differentiate? You're talking about scouting, you're talking about...
But one ends up with a degree, one ends up with playing experiences. So they're different. It would be like you got a scholarship to play. So you're playing on the football team, but your scholarship is to be economics major.
As an academic, yeah. Okay.
So, or in some cases, some people get both. So, and it's interesting because as an NCAA school, a Division III NCAA school, Becker is precluded from giving scholarships on the athletic side, but esports are not under the control of the NCAA at all. So this allows us the flexibility to give scholarships to esports athletes, and Becker is the first school in the state to do that, and there are probably about 100 schools in the country that now give scholarships to students for playing video games at the varsity level.
Are you seeing, Haley and Kim, whoever wants to answer, are you seeing more and more kids coming in? You're a junior, so you guys are juniors. So are you seeing more people coming in to the program? Is it because of the buzz around it and people saying, hey, maybe I can get a scholarship for this? Are you seeing more people coming in under you?
Yeah, definitely. I think it gets bigger and bigger every year, just because especially like the esports industry is growing, and then just there's more and more games that are coming out, and people are just kind of realizing, hey, I actually could make a living off of this. So I think so. Like every year, I've seen like more and more students like at Becker like interested in the gaming program that we have.
How about you, Kim?
I think more people seem to be joining, less for like scholarships, more just for like the competitive like funness that comes from competing in esports.
Yeah, because clearly, if you're talking tournament play, and you're, as you mentioned, Cam, you're talking about national teams for the U.S. To play globally. Yeah. This is a competitive sport. It's not just two people on a couch.
Hey, it's there's been some discussion at the IOC, the Olympic Committee, on whether or not esports should be brought into the sort of Olympic community. I don't know if that'll happen or not.
Wow.
But, I mean, this is the level of interest globally. I mean, hundreds of millions of people play video games. It's billions of people literally around the world play them monthly. It's a very common activity. It's something that we share across cultures. Mm-hmm. And the fact that it's sort of now sort of from a mainstream perspective or a popular culture perspective, sort of rising to a point where it's on par with TV or radio or movies or any of these other forms or pro sports, it just makes sense, right? When you have most of the planet interested in something, this is what happens.
Right. And as you talk about the IOC, the Olympics, and I hear Cam, I didn't know there were national teams until I just heard him say that. And it makes sense that this is, it needs to be taken seriously. And when Haley talks about the fact that she likes event planning, it talks about that you are learning skills that can be used across different platforms. It's not just for e-gaming. That's your choice because you enjoy tournaments. But, I mean, event planning, if you're good at event planning and you're taking business management classes involved and you're thinking about e-gaming, that can be used in other industries, right? So this kind of leaves you open with multiple skills coming out of college that just because you're in esports now doesn't mean you can't transfer that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Now, the number of jobs, when people think of the Massachusetts often is looked at, we're an academic capital, we're a medical capital, a lot of things start here. Tim, you said the first game was at MIT over 50 years ago. And, you know, I read there are celebrities financing tournaments and teams like Robert Kraft and the Celtics, and that this is a real moneymaker. It's a professional moneymaker, right? So, you know, how much do you pay attention to things like celebrity involvement as a student? I mean, does that say, hey, maybe someday I'm going to, you know, does that celebrity effect have any effect on you? Or did it?
I mean, probably not really. I think it's kind of like funny, to be honest. Like when I saw like Kanye West was playing like Fortnite and it was like a really big deal, and I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. But it doesn't like ever inspire me. Like,
wasn't
oh,
it
I
Drake
should.
playing Fortnite?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I thought it was kind of, never mind. Okay, it was
But it's
Drake.
bringing money and attention to Fortnite.
Yeah.
Which brings attention to esports as a whole.
Right.
Yeah, because it was just like you don't normally put those two things together. Or seeing someone like Robert Kraft, who like owns the Patriots, and he like started his own Overwatch team. He put like a whole bunch of money into that. So it's just kind of cool to see things like all kind of coming together, and it's not just like like football versus esports or like music versus esports. Now it's like everything.
Well, I mean, if it's a good investment, which it's looking to be, as a over $1 billion in the esports section and a multi-billion-dollar in the gaming industry, it's not surprising that people want to invest. And Tim, we were having that discussion before we started about how right now we're still in the investment phase, but how many jobs in Massachusetts? Explain the first game that was created at MIT 50 years ago, because that reminds me of the original computers that were these giant things used by scientists only, and then they became mainstream.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a neat sort of, it's an answer to a trivia question, really, is like, where was the first sort of modern video game created? And it was in Cambridge at MIT about 50 years ago. And we've had a great community in the area, game development community in the area since then. We've stabilized around about 2,000 jobs.
In Massachusetts.
Yeah, and that's in core games on the development side. Esports, I'd say, a few years ago, there would have been maybe a handful of jobs, and that has grown. I don't know what the number is at this point, but I'd say it's sort of doubled for the last couple of years, and I expect it will continue to grow as esports becomes more and more popular, both at the sort of state level and then as a from a business perspective, and also as a host location for tournaments and other things. We've already seen a couple of big events in the Boston area. League of Legends was at the
which is a game,
Garden.
just for people listening.
And Counter-Strike was at the Agganis Arena at BU.
That's another game.
Yeah, that's another game.
So there's teams for each of these.
Valve was at the Wang Theater with Dota a couple of years. So there these facilities that we have around the state are also host sites for some of these major tournament activities that are esport venues. So
there's a strategy to this.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking of the students now. There's a real strategy to playing this, right? I mean, you're competitive, but there's a strategy. I said to my nephew, who was showing me a lot about, teaching me about Fortnite because I hadn't played it, and he was talking about, I said, why are you interested in watching someone play this? He's explaining to me what we're watching now, and you get points, and you buy skins, and you do this, and you do that. There's a strategy to this. I mean, this isn't just, whoever's developing this has to be pretty brilliant, I would say, to come up with a game that's going to kind of influence all of these people to get them all the eyeballs on this game. I mean, it's creating the game. That's something that you're looking at, the art side and the user interface, right, Haley? Mm-hmm. That's got to be an interesting and tough thing to do because so many people are probably trying to do the same thing.
Yeah, especially now with so many games out, like you need to make sure that games you have are like they're fresh and like new ideas, and you need to make sure that they keep playing the games. So like with something like Fortnite, like personally, I don't really play Fortnite, and I don't understand why people play it so much. But it's just like they know what they're doing though, because they're like, oh hey, if we do updates, if we like like kids really like the dances, like that's like a huge thing. So they're like, oh, we're just gonna add a whole bunch of dances, and it's something small, but it's just like you need to think of stuff like that, like with the players, just adding like these fun things and to make them like keep playing the game. So because like you can't just like release the game and just kind of walk away from it. You need to make sure that people keep coming back to it. Right,
because that's where the money is, right? I mean, there's got to be a trick to what you're doing. It's just like any other game.
Yeah, it's called games as a service, and they keep going and they never stop. And we've seen it. The business models have evolved underneath games. Like in the old days, people might have bought a cartridge, then maybe they bought a CD, and then maybe they bought something at GameStop or Walmart.
Is GameStop even around anymore?
That's on its way out, right? Probably.
Because people are buying it online.
Well, you just
right?
download,
right?
Right. So the world has sort of technology has pushed. Now people play games not only like I said, on consoles and PCs, but obviously mobile devices. They can play them. You can be on the T. You can be wherever you are playing a game now. There's no need to be connected necessarily to a screen because we all carry one with us in our pocket. In fact, I think about 80% of all App Store revenue is related to games. So I mean, it's a really when you think about the impact that games has on culture, on on business. It's pretty substantial.
It is a business, and that's
Yeah.
the whole point of this show, I think, is to get people to understand that this is a huge business, and there's ancillary jobs. It's software development, it's creative arts, it's marketing of the programs, it's these giant tournament organizations. And then looking at a player like Cam, it's an athletic opportunity, it's a sport opportunity for you to get a scholarship. It's just another way to get help for school, but you're on a sports team. And do you think someday you might make it on the national level?
I guess that's the dream, is to make it on the national level. But, there's always a ways to go. There's always someone better. So, that's what we got to coach. To always just keep improving, keep winning.
Now, where did the coaches come from while we wrap up?
It's interesting. We partner with a Boston-based company called Gamer Sensei that helps us identify great coaches. All these things take place online, so we can have the best coaches in the world available to us for whatever role. Like the game that Cam plays, Smite, is a 5-on-5 game. So there are 5 players on that team, and they each have a different role. So we're not going to have 5 different coaches necessarily that can sort of give you their insight and deep insight.
No, it'd be like
role.
you don't have a quarterback coach,
Yeah.
you have an actual.
Yeah, so we have, and this
Head coach.
Our coach sort of acts like a head coach, but Gamer Sensei gives us access to a stable of other coaches too. So if we wanted a coach that had a real deep knowledge in a particular role, we could ask them to come in as well. So it gives us flexibility and a way to manage our coaching opportunities that we couldn't do if we actually had everybody on campus. It would just be hard, right? Plus we have the globe from which to draw talent instead of just Central Mass.
Right. So again, Massachusetts is ahead of the curve. Worcester is a center right now. Mass Digi is at Becker. And again, gaming is happening everywhere. I hope you'll come back, Tim, and we can talk about what's going on at the high school level because
Sure.
we're running out of time. But Haley and Cam, as we wrap up, is there anything that you think people have a misconception of eSports that you want to clarify?
I think a hard topic is people are like, oh, why are you wasting your time playing video games? And I guess I always am like, well, why are you wasting your time playing like football or something? Because it can kind of go both ways. Not everyone's going to make it to be like a pro football player or something. Not everyone playing esports is going to be like a pro esports player. So it kind of, like I said, it kind of goes both ways. Like if you play like an athletic sport because you like it, like we play video games because we like it. So I feel like it goes like both ways.
And in football, if you're a football player, then you can be a commentator. But if you're doing e-gaming, you have a wealth of jobs, opportunities.
Including being a broadcaster.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They got to do
Yeah.
esports play-by-play, right?
Exactly.
Hey, maybe I should do that. Okay, Cam, as we wrap up, is there any misconception you want to clear up right now?
I think it's more about who's involved in esports. There's a level of professionalism. It's not just you're old school, online barbaric, battleground where everyone's just yelling at each other. There's etiquette. There's it's our club in itself. We had to sign contracts. We're gonna be proper moral code when we're online. We're not gonna be
You have to sign contracts?
Yeah. Well, it was encouraged that we made it up ourselves contract.
Okay.
So.
And it is a team because
Yeah.
I didn't realize this. As Tim just said, there's 5 of you with different roles, so it's just like a 5-on-5 game.
Exactly.
It's a team.
Yeah.
You all 5 have to work to win this tournament.
And there's always a standard we're supposed to uphold because we're representing the school.
Right.
So we've just got to be outstanding citizens in a way.
Okay. Well, again, I thank you all. You've inspired me to go and play. But I think I might need a teacher, as I was saying before, to go beyond Mario Kart, which I love. But I wish the best of luck to you, Haley, Cam, and Tim. Please keep us updated. I'd like you to come back. We can talk about the great things we didn't get to that are going on at the high school level in Massachusetts.
That's an exciting time.
That's an entire show in itself. So thank you all for being here. That's Community Conversations. I'm Vicki Green. Have a wonderful day.